There is, and always has been a widespread belief in fate or destiny that's an indeterminate and unrollable power, which a little amount is definite tends to both individuals and nations. This belief has arisen from long observation of the facts of life. Men are conscious that there are certain occurrences which they go to not control and are powerless to avert. Birth and death, as an example, are inevitable, and much of the incidents of life appear equally inevitable. Men strain every nerve for the attainment of certain ends, and gradually they become alert to an influence which seems to be not of themselves, which frustrates their puny efforts and laughs. Because it were at their fruitless striving and struggle, as many advance in life, they learn to submit more, alas, to the current overruling power, which their doing not understand, receiving only it is of facts in themselves, and thus the world around them, which they call it by various names, like God's providence, fate, destiny, etc., man of contemplation, like poets and philosophers, step aside because it were to appear at the movements of this mysterious power, because it seems to elevate its favorites on the one hand, and strike down its victims on the opposite, without relevance, merit or demerit. Destiny and man's patient and untiring efforts in achieving his hands. Our declarations of consciousness of freedom and power. This still experience of religion on the one hand and freedom on the opposite has given rise to the interminable controversy between the believers in fatalism and therefore the other holders of powerfulness. An issue which was recently revived under the term determinism versus discretion, between apparently conflicting extremes. There's always a middle way of balance, justice or compensation, which, while it includes both extremes, can be said to be either one or the opposite and brings both into harmony, and this middle way is that the point of contact between two extremes. Truth can't be a partisan, but by its nature, is that the reconciler of extremes. Then within the matter which we are considering, there's a golden mean which brings faith and powerfulness into close relationship, wherein indeed it's seen that these two indisputable facts in human life are such there are but two aspects of one central law, one unifying and all-embracing principle, namely the law's causation in its moral aspect. Moral causation necessitates both fate and power, both individual responsibility and individual predestination, for the law causes must even be the law. The facts and cause and effect should be equal. The train of causation, both in matter and mind, must be eternally balanced, therefore, eternally chaste, eternally perfect. Thus every effect is also said to be a thing preordained, but the predetermining power may be a cause, and not the fiat of an arbitrary will. Man finds himself involved within the train of causation. His life is created from causes and effects. It's both a sowing and reaping. Each act of his could be a cause which must be balanced by it is of facts. He chooses the price, this can be free will, he cannot choose, alter or a birth defect? This can be fate. Thus, free will stands for the ability to initiate causes, and destiny is involvement in the very facts. It's therefore true that man is predestined to certain ends, but he himself has, though he knows it, not issued the mandate that good or evil thing from which there's no escape. He has by his own deeds caused. It may here be urged that man isn't liable for his deeds, that these are the results of his character, which he's not answerable for the character, good or bad, which was given him at his birth. If character was given him at birth, this is able to be true, and there would then be no moral law and no need for moral teaching, but characters don't seem to be given ready-made, they're involved. They're indeed the facts, the products of the moral law itself. That's the products of deeds. Character results of an accumulation of deeds which have assembled, so to talk, by the individual during his life. Man is the doer of his own deeds. As such, he's the maker of his own character, and as the doer of his deeds and therefore the maker of his character, he's the motor and shaper of his destiny. He has the ability to change and alter his deeds. And each time he acts he modifies his character, and with the modification of his character permanently or evil, he's predetermining for himself new destinies, disastrous or benefits sent in accordance with the character of his deeds. Character is destiny itself as a set combination of deeds. It bears within itself the results of these deeds. These results lie hidden as moral seeds within the dark recesses of the character, awaiting their season of germination, growth, and fruiting age. Those things which we call man are the reflections of himself. That destiny which pursued him, which he was powerless to flee by efforts or effort by prayer, was the relentless pull of his own wrong deeds, demanding and enforcing restitution. Those blessings and curses which come to him and beaten are the reverberating echoes of sounds which he himself sent forth. It is this information of the right law working through, and particularly, things of the proper justice operating in and adjusting all human affairs, that allows the nice man to like his enemies and to rise, above all, hatred, resentment and complaining, for he knows that only his own can come to him, which, though he be surrounded by persecutors, his enemies are but the blind instruments of a faultless retribution. And then he blames them not, but calmly received his accounts and patiently pays his mortal debts. But this is often not all. He doesn't merely pay his debts. He takes care to not contract to any extent further debts. He watches himself and makes his deeds faultless, while paying off evil accounts. He's laying up good accounts by putting an end to its own street. He's bringing evil and suffering to an end. And now allow us to consider how the law operates, particularly instances within the outworking of destiny through deeds and character. First, we'll have a look at this present. Life, for the president, could be a synthesis of the complete past. The online results of all that a person has ever thought and done is contained within him. It's noticeable that sometimes the great man fails and also the unscrupulous man prospers, a fact which seems to place all moral maxims on the great results of righteousness out of account. In sense of this, many of us deny the operation of any just launch human life and even declare that it's chiefly the hondros that prosper. Nevertheless, the moral law exists and isn't altered or subverted by shallow conclusions. It should be remembered that man may be a changing, evolving being. The great man wasn't always good. The bad man wasn't always bad. Even during this life, there was a time during a sizable amount of instances when the person who is now just was unjust, when he who is now behind was cruel, when he was now poor was impure. Conversely, there was a time during this life, during a number of instances, when he who is now I'm just was just, when he was now cruel, was kind, and he who is now impure was fewer. Thus, the nice man who was overtaken with calamity today is reaping the results of his former evil selling. Later he will reap the happy results of his present good selling. Well, the bad man is now reaping the results of his former good selling. Later he will reap the results of his present selling of bad. Characteristics are fixed habits of mind, the results of deeds, and act repeated an outsized number of times becomes unconscious or automatic. That is, it seems to repeat itself with none effort on the part of the doer. So it seems to him almost impossible to not sleep with, and so it's become a mental characteristic. Here could be a poor person out of labor. He's honest and isn't a sure cur. He wants work and can't comprehend. He tries hard and continues to fail. Where is the justice in his lot? There was a time during this man's condition after you have many work. He felt burdened with it. He sure acted in long freeze. He thought how delightful it might be to possess nothing to try and do. He failed to appreciate the blessedness of his lot. His desire for eases now gratified, but the fruit that he longs and what she thought would taste so sweet has turned to ashes in his mouth. The condition which he aimed for, namely to own nothing to try to he has reached, and there he's compelled to stay till his lesson. This thoroughly learned. And he's surely learning database to lease as degrading that to own nothing to try to with the condition of righteousness which work could be ennoble and blasting. His former desires and deeds have brought him where he's, and now his present desire for work is ceaseless. Searching and requesting it'll even as surely cause its own beneficent result. Now not desiring idleness, his present condition will, as an impression, the cost of which isn't any longer propagated, soon die, and he will obtain employment, and if his whole mind is now assault work and he desires it especially else, then, when it comes, ye are going to be overwhelmed with it. It'll flow into him from all sides and he will prosper in his industry. Then, if he doesn't understand the law of cause and effect in human life, he will wonder why work involves him. Apparently unsought, while others who seek it strenuously fail to get it. Nothing comes undidden, where the shadow is. There is also a substance that which involves the individual is that the product of his own deeds. As cheerful industry ends up in greater industry and increasing prosperity, and labor sure undertaken discontented, leads to a lesser degree of labor and increasing prosperity, so with all the very conditions of life, as we see them As we see them, they're the destinies wrought by the thoughts and deeds of each particular individual. So also with the vast form of characters, they're the right planning and ripened fruit of the selling of deeds. Because the individual reaps what he sows, that the state being a community of individuals reaps also what it sells. Nations become great when their leaders are just men, they fall and fade when they're just man passed on to the good beyond. Those who are in power set an example, good or bad, for the entire nation. Great are the peace and prosperity of a nation when their shut all rise within it. A line of statesmen who, having first established themselves in an exceedingly very lofty integrity of character, shall direct the energies of the state toward the culture of virtue and development of character. Knowing that only through personal industry, integrity and nobility can national prosperity proceed. Still, above all, is that the nice law calmly and with infallible justice meeting bent morals their fleeting destinies, tear-stained or smiling the fabric of their hands. Life could also be an excellent school for the event of character in each one. Through strife and struggle, vice and virtue, success and failure are slowly but surely learning the teachings of wisdom.